The eighth type of trigger is when you're telling a story. So in other words, they're not as important because they don't happen that often. The thing you have to always decide about a story is this the first time this character has told a story, or is this the 10th time this character has told the story? If you think about it, you rarely think about that. If it's the first time, what's triggering the story? What's triggering the story is the events that the story is about. So if you're going to trigger this, if you're going to work out why you move from each moment, you actually have to have an imaginative connection to the events that are causing you to speak. And the imaginative connection to the events needs to be larger and more sensorially rich than what you actually say. If it's the 10th time you've told the story, then actually, if you think about it, the rhythm of the story is different, isn't it, than if it's the first time. Because if it's the first time, you're actually reaching back into the events. There is a way as an actor, you can actually, without the audience understanding it, reveal to them whether it's the first or the 10th time you've told the story. If it's the 10th time, then it's based on the selection of you honing your story the previous 9 times you've told the story. If it's the second time, then it's less that way, but it's somewhat that way. Okay? It's a really important thing to work out. But the way you trigger a story is either off the events or off your understanding of why you have selected to express this part of the event rather than that part of the event because of the times you've told the story before. The 10th, oh shit, I left the stove on. 9. Is an epiphany. And you want to know something really interesting? This is when I knew that we were onto something with this. Because you can't trigger an epiphany. That moment, even though I got the number wrong, that moment is the only moment that I've drilled in this whole conversation that we're having. And it is a conversation, by the way. I mean, if this was a 1 hour, if this was on script, we're into about an hour mark, and we're going to take a break in a second. We're into an hour mark. Basically, if this was on the page, this would be a 60-page monologue. But it's not, it's a conversation. All the time, even though I've been doing 99.9% of the talking, apart from John's question, then basically, I'm still talking with you, not at you, right? An epiphany is the only thing you have to learn by rote. Because you can't trigger an epiphany, can you? There's no way I can trigger, oh shit, I left the stove on. I could trigger it if I wanted to. I could look at the microwave. I could happen to glance to look at the clock on the microwave to see where we are for time and realize that that's a kind of oven, and then that triggers. But then then it wouldn't be an epiphany, would it? An epiphany, by its very nature, is something that moves from the unconscious to the bespoke, without passing through my conscious mind. That's what an epiphany is. You can't trigger that. If you really want the audience to believe that it's just something that just suddenly came to you, you have to learn it by rote. That which is most spontaneous of all human behavior in life is, as an actor, the one thing you have to drill. Fascinating, isn't it? Okay. 10th type of trigger is a theatrical conceit. How many people have worked with blue screen or green screen? How does the director work with you when you're working with green screen, by the way? How did the director work with you?
I've done it on motion cap.
Oh, you've done it on motion cap. How many people have worked with a director on a studio film or an independent film with green screen? How do they work? How did the director work with you, Adam?
They describe everything that's around and what's happening.
And when they describe it moment by moment, basically, don't they? And they tell you what reaction they want you to have.
What you're gonna do, right?
They literally,
Surprised here.
yeah, be surprised because the dinosaur's about to take your head off, and then you're done for the day. But it's very interesting. When people work with green screen, because you're having to create something that isn't there, most of the time what a director does is basically lead you through the experience moment by moment, right? Okay. But it's a theatrical conceit. If you're doing a play And unless you have a blue light that comes on you at the point that the moon is rising, but your line is, oh look, the moon's rising, that's a theatrical conceit. To some extent, you have to learn that by rote, unless you have a trigger that you can rely on that will give you that moment. Same thing with green screen. Essentially, if the director isn't doing it, you have to be able to remember the sequence. It's a conceit. So then you have to learn by rote. That's fine. Okay? The 11th type of trigger is a question mark. You have absolutely no idea why you are saying or doing what you are saying or doing. The process of absorbing the material, this is the last thing I'll say before we take a break. The process of absorbing the material is a process of winnowing down the question marks. And often as you're working on it and working on it, there may be, if you're going to shoot it on set, there may be a couple of question marks that you bring to set with you, and you either ask the director about that moment, or in the process of camera rehearsal with the other actor, you actually get the moment. You go, oh, that's what it is, right? And it's okay to have question marks. What you are doing is you are embracing initially a state of not knowing when you first approach the material, rather than embracing the state of needing to know as fast as you possibly can. You embrace the state of going, okay, I'm going into a world here. Here's the first moment of this world. How does it lead to the next moment? And what's the world inside that moment? It's like a series of little tiny acid trips. For those of you who've taken acid. In each moment, there is a world. And you're beginning to explore the world. And you are making an assumption, which is that the moments will give you the world. And that the world will begin to lead you towards an understanding of the person that you're playing, and how that person is acting in the world, and how they are responding to the other people in the world. And you make a lot of discoveries along the way. You discover there's a subtextual moment here, there's something that I'm doing. Ah, look, my character has a very clear objective in this moment. He's really trying to get something from the other person. Fine, when it's there, play it.